Hello everybody, Gisele Grenier here. In this video lesson, I'm going to show you how you can make your own granite style texture product using stuff you may already have. So just to give you an example of what I'm looking at, so you can see this. This is made with Decor's Texture Fiero. I don't have any, I don't even know if they make it anymore, but it's like a, think of it like a drywall compound that's got some glitter in it. Really fine glitter. So we're going to do something like that. I'm going to show you the products I'm going to be using, and I'm going to give you some options depending on what you have. So for colors, I'm going to use Decor Media Fluid Acrylics. I'm going to use Dioxazine Purple, and it's the single pigment purple. Decor Media Gesso, the white. Decor Glamour Dust is the ultrafine glitter paint, Black Ice. Decor Media Black Gesso, Texture Sand Paste, and Clear Modeling Paste. Now, if you don't have clear modeling paste, you can use like Dimensional Effects paintable texture paste, not that one, or you can use like a modeling paste from Traditions, and it's a modeling paste that you can use. I prefer using the clear because when you're working with white, something that's white, because we're making it black, you're having to add a little bit more paint. But the white is fine if you're doing something like red, orange, yellow, whatever. I'm making mine specifically black because I want to mimic that. Now this texture sand paste is used to create the grit in that. If you don't have that, you can use regular sand, you can use micro beads, anything to make a sandy texture in that. Just don't use cornstarch because that's so fine. Heck, go into your garden and steal some sand from a sandbox or something. But you can. That's what that's for. Okay, so where do I start? So because I'm looking for something that I want some contrast in there, so I'm going to start with a white card. And just to give you an idea, if your card is like a packaging, you want to put a little bit of gesso on there to basically set things back, unless you want the background to show through. So what we're looking at is if you have a whole bunch of cards made up, I mean, you can use something like that, and that way some of the text will show through. If you have something like this, you're definitely going to need gesso because this is so slick. This packaging, this is a Brita packaging. Your paint won't stick to that very well. So gesso for sure. At least the minimum, matte medium. But on a clear thing like that, clear cardboard, it's the raw cardboard, we want to put something down there because you don't want the product sinking in to like the paint sinking into this. It'll take forever to dry, and gesso is usually more economical than paint. The purpose of gesso is adhesion to your priming, your prepping your surface to receive something. So that's all you need, nothing fancy. And while I'm here, I might as well do this one since my brush is already dirty with gesso. Okay, so we'll just go like that. And then from here, you can turn around and decide if you want to glue some paper down to create a bit of a background. No big deal. I want to work with something white. Whoopsie. I want to work with something white for contrast. So that's that. So let me just move this aside. Where I'm going to put this, I have no idea. So I've got a little card here with some text in the back, gesso to push it back. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to a speck of dioxazine purple. You don't need a lot of this because it's so strong. And I'm just going to, that is really strong. Wow, 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 wow. I'm just wetting that. Let me get a baby wipe. That is way too strong. That is way too strong. I may not have a choice now. That really sunk in there. So what do we do if this is just too much dioxazine purple? What do we do? You can use some more gesso and push it back, which is what I'm going to end up doing. Mind you, will it matter? No, you know what? I should be okay because I can put the stencil over there. What I want to do now is with this, let's see, there's a bit of grit back there, and then there's the stencil part here. I'm going to take, let me take the black gesso and rinse my brush. Let's take a little bit of black gesso and let's just put a little bit here just to get something in there. for some contrast. I want to be able to stencil right on top of this so you can see what it's going to look like. And then we'll take a baby wipe and create a bit of a transition like that. And let's put a bit of an angle. Just creating a bit of texture. Paper towels are great for stamping gesso. Like that. Okay. And we're going to need that, so I'm going to leave that open. I'm going to get my modeling paste. So while that's drying, get the texture sand paste. Now I've already made up some here. I'm going to make that up right over here. Now I'm going to take my palette knife. You don't want to use a brush for this. We're going to start off with texture sand paste. I just made a mess. So you want to stir it up, and it's a really fine sandy grit in there. So you want to kind of... Now there's different ratios for this stuff depending on what brand you're using, or if you're making your own. So you're going to have to figure out the ratio if you're not using the same products as I am. So what I like to do is I like to do a 1-1-1, 1 part sand paste, 1 part gesso, 1 part, and then half and half of the modeling paste and the glamour dust. So I want to start with half of the gesso with the sand paste. I want to mix that up, and basically you just add a bit more gesso if it's too gray. And this is actually pretty good. So it was only half. I'm using a new thing of gesso. The other one I had was a bit watery, so I ended up having to use more gesso. So it was 1 part of the DecoArt texture sand paste, half a part of the black gesso. Then I'm going to take the ultrafine glitter and add about half a part of that. And this is more of, this is to add the shimmer. Now the ultrafine glitter says black ice, but it's more of a gray. So this is where you're going to have to experiment. This is actually pretty nice. We're not going to need the modeling paste. So see how thin it is? What you do now is you kind of spread it out. And then I would say just mix it up like this. You know, and then spread it out. And you're going to do that if you want, if it's super thin, for about an hour. And what it's going to do is going to thicken up. Like this one here is nice and thick. You can see it's a lot more gray. I put a lot more of the ultrafine glitter in that. So what we can do, I'm going to give you an example. I found the stencil that I did with this. If you put it too thin, then the thin one is just going to sink right underneath the stencil. So what I want to do is I want to use the thick one. Let me just clean that off. And then I'm going to put this into a container. That's still a little bit thick. Be very, very careful. You don't want to use too much pressure, and then lift up. There we go. That's going to take quite a bit to dry. And then what you do with the rest now is that you can scrape it and just put it into a container. Or even just stencil this into a journal page. I have to clean that right away. And put this into a container where I can use it for something else. I really should check to see if DecoArt still has the texture Fiero. But again, I wasn't using it a lot, so it's easy enough just to make it from scratch. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to leave it for about a day. And then we come back, we'll compare what this looks like versus this one. Alrighty, so I gave it a day to dry. I just had to do something a little bit, extra just to make sure, because I wanted to test the flexibility. So this is the original one with the texture Fiero, and very, very pretty. It is flexible. And this is the one that I did, so you can see it is flexible. It was a bit fluid because I could see where the texture mixture went underneath the stencil a little bit. So that just now tells me I have to let it sit a little bit longer out in the air to, you know, stir it up to let the moisture evaporate, which will make it a little bit easier to use. So then what I did is I took that and I put it all over the entire card to see how it would level out. And this was a very, very textured card, so it retained everything quite nicely and it's flexible. But I don't see a lot of the shimmer as I do in the original Texture Fiero. So what I did is I added more of the glamour dust and then I put some on here and I see a little bit on there. So what I'm thinking now is if I wanted to get something like this, it looks like I'm going to have to paint it. So I'm going to get some of the glamour dust. This is the black ice. I'm just going to put, let me just put it right there, just a little bit. Just a speck and just a dry brush. And let's see what happens. Now with this here, again, with painting, when you're painting on top of this, and this is working perfectly, you run the risk of, you know, covering up some of the paper. And if you're careful, you know, you can, it's not so bad, but, you know, sometimes you just do not want to cover any of the paper at all. You only want it on the medium. And this we won't have to let dry to see the effect. Use a small brush. Be careful on the technique. Take your time. Right now, patience is something that I don't have. And we just put that in there. There we go. Let's scoop some of the extra stuff up, and we'll just kind of slap it over there. And with this one here, yeah, the shimmer is really, really obvious. So that could be a good thing too, because let's say you wanted it to have a little bit of a shimmer, but you didn't want it to be like a glitter type of shimmer. You can use that in a pearlescent medium or something like that. So I let it dry just for a couple minutes, and now you can see. So comparing that to that. Now I also noticed that the Texture Fiero is a bit more gray, where my mixture is more black. But there you go. That's just by adding a layer of the black ice. And there's without on the edges and then with. So I really enjoyed this experiment because now I know I have a alternative way of making a shimmery granite type of texture paste if I can't get any of the Texture Fiero. Like I said, the containers are large and it takes up a lot of space. So if I can make it with the products I already have, that's even better. All right, so as usual, if you're watching this from YouTube, click on the link below to the Facebook group because that's where I'm hanging out. And the question I'd like to ask everybody over in the Facebook group is, do you use texture products in your art projects? So let me know what they are. If you make them yourself, you know, what a recommended formula that works for you. And if you've never used a texture product, is this something you might want to consider putting into your work? Or if you've never used it, what's the biggest question that you have about using a texture product like this in your art? Alrighty, so that's it. So I'm going to clean up and get ready for the next project. And until I see you then, stay inspired.